I was not about to correct you.
Okay. I would like to call to order the March 7th, 2022 Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session. Welcome, everyone. You all have a copy of the agenda before you. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda, including the changes on page 3. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say no. That motion passes, and we move to discussion items. First up, item 3.1 from our 2021 Child Protection and Fatality Team Report, and we welcome Paula Yost to bring that report. Hi, Paula.
Thank you, Commissioner. So while Lauren is getting my presentation all loaded up, I guess I'm going to give you the standard spiel that I give you every year, which is to begin by saying, I'm going to talk about things that are very disturbing and that no one wants to hear about. However, these things are very, very important because they're important for you to have a handle on our population's most vulnerable citizens, which are our children. So I want to just kind of open up by talking briefly about what the Child Protection and Fatality Team is. Again, I know that you all know what it is, but I know that there may be viewers at home who don't. So I like to always give an update on that. Basically, we are statutorily mandated by the state of North Carolina, and the state legislature wanted every county in the state to have an interdisciplinary team of the closest thing we could get to experts to explore areas of child welfare, including global issues pertaining to child fatality and child protection. So our team has the district attorney's office, physicians from Atrium Health, people from the Children's Advocacy Center at Jeff Gordon's, law enforcement from all three agencies, Concord PD, KPD, and the Sheriff's Department, the Cabarrus Partnership for Children, mental health agencies, nonprofits, pretty much you name it. If they have anything to do with children, they're welcome. We have support from the school system and school social workers. Amy Jewell is one of our predominant members of our team. So, that being said, there are a number of things that I am really proud of our community for, and I'm going to highlight, I think, at least 3 of those this year. But this is one of the ones that I appreciate you all for, which is, as you know, you guys took steps to vote to disengage Cabarrus County from Cardinal Innovations. I cannot begin to express to you how positive that transition has gone. And I've been polling my team ever since September when they took over, when partners took over from Cardinal, to say, how's this going? What do we need to do? I had a calendar lined up with meetings with partners' employees to try to ease into the transition that I really didn't need. Because to be honest with you, everything is going really well. A few specifics. Partners responds within 72 hours and no more than 4 days for a comprehensive clinical assessment and recommended treatment level authorization for foster children. This used to take a minimum of 14 days, but it really took more like a month or longer. This is resulting in reduced number of children or adults being stuck in the hospital emergency room. We certainly still have issues with adults and older children who need behavioral health beds, but at least we're moving them on along. Before, under Cardinal, these children were just languishing. I mean, you can imagine if you're 13 years old and you are genuinely a danger to yourself or others, and you're just kind of parked in Atrium Cabarrus's emergency room for 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm not saying we still don't have those cases, but we're doing a lot better with moving them on along and stopping children from languishing. The second bullet point, We have been given an immediate assignment to the Department of Human Services of a partners care coordinator who is going to actually work out of DHS as soon as they're physically able to do that, which I believe is actually now. I have asked for that from Cardinal for the last 7 years, and they always gave me some reason why they couldn't do it. And partners had absolutely no problem making that happen. The third bullet point is also huge: Medicaid in lieu of services. So if you have a complex disability, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, some sort of an organic birth defect, North Carolina has a statutory mandated fund called the Innovations Waiver that ultimately funds your care when you transition from being a child to an adult. But the way that the waiver works is someone else who's already on it literally has to die before you can get on the waiver. There's a limited number of seats and a limited number of statutory funds that are allotted for disabled adults who are on the Innovations Waiver. So a lot of times people wind up waiting. You're not going to see an 18-year-old who's getting services through the waiver. You're going to see a 30 or a 40-year-old who's getting them. So what we've seen is they have been able to give us Medicaid in lieu of services for people who are waiting to get on the Innovations Waiver. Cardinal had 10, which were available to us, which included ACT, Rapid Care, and a bunch of other things. Partners matched all 10 of those, but they also added us 9 additional Medicaid in lieu of services options, which is huge when you consider what those families are going through. Partners also operates an open network. I want to explain what an open network means. So if you as a clinical mental health therapist want to provide services in Cabarrus County, as long as you fill out your paperwork and it is accurate and you don't have a bunch of complaints against you with the mental health board, Partners will approve you as long as your record looks good and you've turned in your forms. Cardinal would never do that. Cardinal would always say, we can't have any more therapists because it's a geographical mandate, and so we can't add therapists anymore. So what they would tell us is trauma-focused therapists, therapists who deal with children with autism, sex offender treatment therapists, their answer was always, well, those are down in Mecklenburg County, you can just drive. That doesn't work for many of our family members who are our families who are living in poverty. So I think we're going to see a much better, much more comprehensive level of just services, period. I can't begin to tell you the service gaps that we have had during Cardinal, but I think that I'm seeing those get better, and I'm expecting that to continue to get better. This is another huge one for you guys. Partners is giving us extensive and consistent free training and webinars that are available. So therapists are able to take advantage of these when they need to get continuing education credits, but they also do a great job just training organizations and other community partners within the county. With Cardinal, we had to pay for all of that. So if you wanted to do a training through Cardinal with their trainers, that came out of some form of Cabarrus County's line item budget if it was a county entity that was doing it. With Partners, all that's free. So we're not having to stress about that anymore. And also the quality of those trainings is excellent. I haven't had a single person attend one that they said was bad. They're doing a fantastic job with all of that. And last, information sharing and feeding is great. You know, with Cardinal, everything was a fight, everything was a dispute. We're not having that anymore. So I can't believe I'm actually about to say this, but I actually believe the LME MCO system can work. I would have never said that a year ago, but I actually believe that the way the state has structured it, it can be successful as long as your LME MCO has good leadership and that leadership understands how to deal with people with mental health conditions. It's not going to work if they treat it like a run-of-the-mill insurance company. That's how we got where we were. But I actually do think that it can work the way that Partners does it, and I think we're going to see some real improvement for mentally ill people in our community because of that. And that never would have happened had you all not voted to disengage. And I think it's also even bigger than that, because we need to not only look at how that impacted our community, because I'll remind you, because this has kind of been old news and it hasn't been in a headline in a while, after Cabarrus County disengaged from Cardinal, I believe it was 8 other counties followed suit. So that impacted the lives of 800,000 people in the state of North Carolina who were receiving Medicaid services through the state. There aren't 800,000 people who live in this county. So Cabarrus County was really a genuine leader in saying what you're doing is not working and we need to fix it. And that single decision that you all voted on had ramifications for 800,000 Medicaid patients. And those people, I mean, I think that's probably, I'm not an elected official, but if I was, I think that's probably one of the things that I would be the most proud of. Next up. I want to talk to you a little bit about our Department of Human Services numbers for children that are in foster care. So the first is that Cabarrus County DHS investigations worked with 4,470 children, which was an increase from 3,728 children in 2020. So that's a fairly substantial increase for investigations. For our county, we accepted 1,038 cases, and out of those, 506 were forensic cases. Forensic cases are your very difficult cases. Those are the highest need cases because those are the cases that involve physical or sexual abuse against a child. Forensic cases right now make up 49% of the cases that were accepted by Cabarrus County in 2021. And in 2020, it was only 27.8%. So basically, our physical and sexual abuse of children cases doubled almost between 2020 and 2021. We believe that that jump is really due to more complex domestic violence, substance abuse, and just the overall ramifications of people who were already living in poverty and then having to live in poverty in the middle of a global pandemic and the ramifications that that had on the poor. Out of the total number of cases accepted, 280 of them had substance abuse allegations, and 69 of them, or 25%, had alleged opioid use. Cabarrus County also, this is a big number that I think people don't think about a lot. Cabarrus County had 423 assist requests from other counties and states. So an assist request would basically be if Mecklenburg County has a case, but the mother in that case was also a foster child in Mecklenburg County. That conflicts Mecklenburg County DHS out of working with that case because they already know those folks. So they may need an assist. And so if they need an assist, they call our county and ask us to help them. That happens a lot. And so there were 423 requests of those, and the county completed 397. This is my, I guess, statistical way of saying that DHS probably needs some more social workers. Next up. I want to talk briefly about in-home services because people don't think a lot about what in-home services are. So DHS really has four major provisions that deal with child welfare. They have prevention services, which I'm going to talk about in a second. They have foster care, which we just talked about in a lot more detail. They also have investigations, which is kind of the pipe way to looking at a family to see if they need to go into in-home services or foster care. And then last, we have in-home services. A lot of families that wind up in in-home services, there is not child abuse or neglect. These are people who love their children, they're just living in poverty. So they're your family who's living out of a minivan, and they love their family, but just for whatever reason, they faced an eviction and they just need some help. So we had 43 of those in in-home services as opposed to last year's 54. You'll see that there is a switch in that number. That switch in the number is probably because I believe stress in homes have led to more child abuse and neglect situations than what we would have seen otherwise. We also have 161 children in foster care as opposed to 2020's 152, and in 2019 we had 133. So I always like to add this too. We are never, I wish that we were, but unfortunately we don't live in a utopian world where we don't have children in foster care. We are always going to have children in foster care. That's just the unfortunate reality of American life. There are certain statistics that kind of show how many children should be in a county based on population size. And I don't think based on our population size that we have too many children in foster care considering the county size and its growth. But when you look at 2 years ago, we had 133 children in foster care, and now we have 161. that's probably a combination of growth, and it's also a combination of pandemic ramifications causing poverty. So even though it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot because that number represents 161 human beings, I mean, if we couldn't fit that many children in this conference room. So if you think about it like that, it's a lot, but I don't think it's higher than it is in other parts of the state. So I don't think that we're doing a bad job, is what I'm trying to say. All right, next up is kind of the fourth level, which is DSS Prevention. So the prevention unit received a total of 505 referrals during 2021. They served 160 families. Prevention is voluntary. So you can get a referral for DSS Prevention, but that doesn't mean you have to take it. But these families get help with a lot of things like rental assistance, food stamps, if their children need to get their Medicaid applications filled out. The department helps those families get it, but the families have to want to participate. We also have a program called Between Two Homes. This is for parents who have split up and who need some co-parenting assistance. Between Two Homes received 44 referrals, and they had 104 individuals complete their program last year. The parenting specialist in the prevention unit got 39 referrals. 30 families participated in parenting classes with the parenting specialist. The prevention team also reached out to 217 churches in November, which resulted in 21 prevention families having a Thanksgiving that they otherwise would not have had. We also sponsored 36 families with Christmas, with 12 families receiving a meal. The good thing about this unit is it has a 12% rate of recidivism. So only 12% of the families in prevention went on to have mandatory services in DSS for abuse, neglect, and dependency. Next up. These are your Jeff Gordon Children's Advocacy Center percentages. You'll also see that services there have gone up. I want to also add, going to the CAC again means that the child is a victim of physical or sexual abuse. And so they go to the Jeff Gordon Children's Hospital so that we can create a record that can be used in a judicial proceeding. That's one reason. There's a number of other reasons, including medical care, but that's one of them. So you only get to go there to be seen if you're a suspected physical or sexual abuse victim. So of kids that are brand new to the CAC, in 2020 we had 193. In 2021 we had 265. So we had an overall increase. Just if you're interested, the rest of this slide breaks down their gender. So there were 180 female children and 85 males. The highest age group was 7 to 12. It is a little bit different. In previous years, it had usually been the 0 to 6 age range. And so this year, it's interesting that that case jumped up. I suspect that that is because we had children who were not in school. So I've said this over and over again to the school board and to numerous other people. When Cabarrus County children go to school, I feel much better about their child welfare, because our Cabarrus County teachers and our Cabarrus County social workers are well-trained individuals, and they're our first line of defense. Additionally, if you're a parent who's struggling with, anything, addiction, poverty, whatever else, when your kids are in school, you've got a break that you need. That's kind of what every parent, I don't know that there's a parent ever who wouldn't say they get a little bit of a break when their children are in school. That's when people work. That's when people go to AA meetings. That's when people do what they need to do in order to be a good, productive parent. And so if you're at home trying to teach your children how to read and write, I think that unfortunately that probably led to some of this increase that we see. This is, I believe, the 9th year that I've given this presentation to the Board of Commissioners. I've never had that number be higher for 7 to 12 versus 0 to 6. Next up. Talk a little bit about obesity. So 33% of the children in the county have been identified as overweight or obese. The way that we track that is that the hospital, so Atrium pretty much has a database where they keep track of every child's weight and height and tries to figure out where we are based on that, based on their annual physicals. This has reached a level where The hospital actually opened an obesity clinic for children that is in Kannapolis. Dr. Shelley Houston is in charge of the Atrium Health Levine Children's Healthy Futures Clinic. It's a full-service weight management for children as young as 2 years old. It's holistic. It has a doctor, a nurse practitioner, a dietitian, an exercise physiologist, and an LCSW. Again, it's very important for children to be in school. We had a problem with childhood obesity prior to the pandemic. That situation has gotten worse now that children were not in school having PE and having free places to roam and play. You know, if you'll remember, for a while during the pandemic, all of the parks and recs had to close under the governor's mandate so that playgrounds were closed, so children didn't get to go out to play. Critical part of human development is being able to climb up, doing things like climbing up the stairs to be able to go down a slide, climbing down ladders, you know, what you see in the Chick-fil-A play place even. That's critical part of human development and gross motor skill development that these children didn't get for a substantial period of childhood. All right. So we're going to talk about our 2020 Cabarrus County child fatalities. This number is low, which is good. During 2020, we had 18, which is actually the lowest number of fatalities that we have had since, in the last 5 years, this is the lowest number that we've had. So that's good. 8 of our fatalities were due to illness. 5 were due to extreme prematurity. So extreme prematurity is pretty much children who were born prior to 23 to 24 weeks of gestation. So they were just born, that can happen for any number of reasons, but it's impossible to sustain life when you're born that soon. NICU intervention will not assist. So usually they did make it to 20 weeks though, because prior to that it's just considered a standard miscarriage. So that's that unfortunate spot in the middle between miscarriage and viability. Accidental deaths. We had 2. One of them involved a car crash. Well, it wasn't a car crash. The child was struck by a vehicle. That child tested positive for marijuana at birth and had a long history of failure to supervise that child. And we had another child who died in a co-sleeping environment, and we don't know the substance abuse or the substance impact on that child. It didn't have any form of tox screen that we were aware of. However, we did have 3 co-sleeping fatalities where all of those children tested positive for some sort of substance when they were born. I'm going to talk to you a lot about that, so I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. We did not have any children die as a result of child abuse, which I'm very thankful for, and we do not have any 2020 fatalities that are currently pending the DA's review, which means we don't have any cases that we believe there was a homicide or some form of other nefarious cause of death for the child such that the DA's office is reviewing it. All right, Lauren. Okay, so the state of North Carolina has been really focused for about 10 years on what we call the Safe Sleep campaign. So Safe Sleep, unless you've had a child within the last 10 years or you've had a grandchild within the last 10 years, you're probably not familiar with what this is. But it was designed to deter deaths by SIDS. So the theory is that children need to go to sleep in their own safe sleep environment, whether it's a crib or whether it's a bassinet. They don't need to have bumpers on the side of the bed anymore because children suffocate in those. And in an ideal world, you want them to be in a safe sleep sack. So instead of putting your baby in the bed with a bunch of pillows and blankets, that's actually harmful. Putting children to bed in a sleep sack is the ideal way to do it. Unfortunately, the state's Safe Sleep campaign is absolutely not having the results that it should have, and no one is really clear as to why. So a few months, or maybe a year ago, Chief Assistant District Attorney Ashley Shanley and I were in an intense child fatality review. So an intense fatality review is when the state says DSS had involvement with a child within 1 year of that child's death, and the state comes in and conducts a 2-day, 48-hour detailed deep dive into every single thing that happened with this family. So it's far more significant than what we do with my team where we just review the fatalities. This is like we get the whole case file out and we go through it line by line. And the state's fatality reviewer is a woman named Kathy Hitchcock. And during that meeting, Kathy just kind of in passing said, you know, oftentimes when I do these fatalities and the decedent is a child under 6 months of age, I wouldn't say every time, but probably about 80% of the time, that child tested positive for marijuana at birth. And so Ashley and I thought that was really interesting. So we asked Kathy, you know, well, has the state studied that? Are there any statistics on this? Has anyone looked at this at all? And she said, no, I don't think so, but that's just kind of what I see doing these all across the state of North Carolina, full-time. That's what my job is. So Ashley and I worked with Cabarrus Health Alliance, and we had them go back, and we had them pull, because every single year, I think you've heard me say this before, we have an average of about one child per quarter that dies from co-sleeping or unspecified co-sleeping. That is their cause of death. And so, you know, this county has done everything we can do in order to supply pack and plays, cribs. There's no reason for any parent, regardless of their poverty level in this community, to not have those things. The hospital's really good at asking about it. The partnership has grant money that they can give families to get those things. It's not a lack of resource. We know that. So why is this happening? So we had CHA go back and pull all of the fatalities that we had reviewed in 2017, 18, 19, and 20. So we basically went back 4 years in addition to the ones we just showed you. And what we found is that we had 13 children who died in some sort of unspecified co-sleeping environment. 5 of those children tested positive for marijuana when they were born, which is 38%, which is a huge number when you consider. So this is an area where I believe that our county is probably going to be a leader again. Where you guys were a leader in starting the ball rolling with Cardinal, I believe that the reason the state's co-sleeping and unsafe sleep campaign is failing is because we are barking up the wrong tree and we are not looking at the right thing. The right thing is impaired sleep, and I think we need to have a serious conversation about impaired sleep. So the chief medical examiner for all of the state of North Carolina is Lisa Mayhew. She sent out an email to all of the child protection teams in the state in December of 2021 that said, in the 10 years of safe sleep efforts, our numbers have not decreased. Messaging about this has not been strong enough, and we are battling contradictory information being provided to families. Some of that comes in where mom goes home and she's all freaked out about they're saying I need to safe sleep and I can't hold the baby while I'm asleep, and grandma says, well, I did that with you the whole time. You're fine. Because in the old days, everybody slept with their baby, or not everyone, but it was much more common to sleep with your baby back then. So part of it is that. SIDS is natural. This is this is coming from the chief medical's office. SIDS is natural and has been separated from unsafe sleep deaths for over 10 years. Messaging needs to reflect that. Co-sleeping is a risk factor for SIDS. While breastfeeding can reduce the likelihood, breastfeeding in bed lying down increases the risk of asphyxiation, and nursing mothers need to know this. There is no such thing as safe co-sleeping. The chief medical office is very adamant that they believe in safe sleep abstinence. There is no such thing as going to sleep with your baby and having that be 100% safe. While they feel that they have reduced deaths in the past, it's not gone as far as they want it to be. And basically they want local teams to be proactive, to work with community partners, to get creative, because what we've done so far has not worked. I had a detailed call with Lisa Mayhew a few weeks ago about the fact that 38% of our unspecified co-sleeping fatalities involved impaired sleep. They're very interested in this. Ashley and I are doing a presentation to all of the state child protection teams next month on our findings and how we got here. But one thing that Lisa did say that did make me feel better, and so I'm going to share it with you, is that you just think your numbers are bad. She said there are other counties in the state where the hospital is not teaching safe sleep abstinence, and they're really kind of just not doing it. And those those counties have far higher fatality than you do. So she's like, so while you're horrified, 13 babies over a 5-year period in this range is really not a lot compared to other parts of the state. So that's good, but I'm also more concerned about the impaired sleep aspect of this than anything else. Because even though impaired sleep is 38%, we don't know about the other percentage. We don't know how many of these people were smoking marijuana during their pregnancy, but was like, I've got to deliver this baby soon. Let me lay off the marijuana for a while to see what happens. Next up. Sudden infant death syndrome is really a diagnostic of exclusion. So we go off of limited anatomical evidence at an autopsy. The state absolutely does not test dead children for marijuana at all. They don't do it at all. It's not part of their tox testing. They said that that is something that they could do, but they need the state to fund it, because they need to pay for the reagents that they would need in order to perform tox testing. So as of right now, we have absolutely no data on that whatsoever. When I say the child was positive for marijuana, that is at birth. I don't know whether they were positive for marijuana or not the day that they died, because the state isn't looking for that. And let's be clear, we need them to. The death certificates will say undetermined, which is what we see all the time. And then, could marijuana exposure play a role? Well, sure. I mean, marijuana impacts sleeping habits. It makes you more sedated when you're asleep. It interrupts parental attentiveness to their child's cries, and it overall creates an unsafe sleep environment for everyone in the house. So the state toxicologist is Dr. Jason Hudson. He presented to our team last October. Basically, he said, again, what I just told you, there's absolutely no cannabinoid testing conducted in his office. But he also added a few things that he thinks could be contributing to impaired sleep fatality. One is that marijuana is not commonly associated with cause and measure in death determinations. Testing cannabis in blood is difficult. The population has a high positivity rate, which leads to an increased number of confirmations of death. And the testing scheme requires money. One of the other things that he told me that I thought was very interesting when it comes to these is that we not only need to really look at testing decedents, like children, to see if they were positive for marijuana, but we also need to do that with car fatality crashes. Because we have no idea how many times somebody who just fell asleep behind the wheel was actually high. And he said that's not something that we test for. We don't test for marijuana tox. We test for opioids, but we're not testing for marijuana in that. So we literally don't know what the impact of marijuana on the population is at all. We have no idea. Next up. We also really don't know what the impact of marijuana is on children. There are very limited studies that show the impact of marijuana exposure on babies. Some studies do show smaller head circumference and reduction in motor skills. We do believe that, there's some evidence that says it can actually have a benefit for seizures, but it raises questions regarding the overall environment for the child. There are some studies that say it could have hidden links to autism. There are studies that say it can have hidden links to schizophrenia, but no one has ever studied it. So we don't actually know what marijuana does to children or pregnant women at all. So what's our county doing about this? Well, Atrium is trying to educate mothers. And based on my conversation with Lisa Mayhew, they're doing a much better job than other medical systems within the state. So that's positive. The Department of Human Services also has a special team that goes to the hospital now before a child leaves the unit. So we had some concern a few years ago because if a child tests positive for marijuana when they're born, they need to still get moved off the unit. Like, we don't want to keep people in labor and delivery for no reason other than waiting on DHS to come out and do an assessment on whether or not the child is safe to come home. So DHS has got 2 special social workers now who this is their whole job, is when the hospital calls and says, hey, we have a marijuana positive or some kind of drug positive baby, we can't let them leave until you come out here. DHS is responding to those calls within 48 hours. So we're doing a better job of making sure that the hospital and the Department of Human Services are talking to one another and communicating with each other, so we're catching these babies, which is important. We also have CMARC. CMARC is at Cabarrus Health Alliance. It was formerly called CC4C, so it has a new name. This is care management for at-risk children. These referrals are occurring and the babies are being followed by CMARC. Overall education of county employees about the significant dangers which are present when a mother is smoking marijuana while she is pregnant. I can't stress that enough. I think that because many other states are beginning to legalize marijuana and it's just kind of this pass-off thing that's not that big of a deal, Mecklenburg County is not even really prosecuting possession of marijuana the way that they once did anymore, with marijuana lobbies trying to come in. We just need to make sure people are educated that children are still a very vulnerable population. Newborns are a very vulnerable population. And we can't just say, well, that's cultural, or, well, it's okay to smoke weed because it controls nausea while you're pregnant. That's not, we don't know what it does. And so you are taking a significant risk when you're using any kind of substance when you are pregnant or while you have a newborn. Educating our state representatives to be mindful of all this is very important. I think I reiterated there the comments about car crashes. Our county's communications department is actually in the process of making 4 videos about safe sleep, shaken baby, and other topics in this realm. We are very thankful for this resource. Somebody called me about this week, and I think I'm doing something with that on Thursday, but it's on my calendar. So we appreciate that. We do need the public to do that. Local law enforcement also has a training this month with the chief medical examiner about death investigations and how the community is going to be better able to look at those. Other things for the public to know: basically, don't smoke marijuana when you're pregnant because we don't know what impact that has on your newborn. A lot of women, again, they do it to alleviate pain or discomfort or nausea or to be able to sleep, but don't do it when you're pregnant. I feel like that's something I shouldn't have to say, but apparently based on our fatality numbers and the fact that that is the population of children that is dying in this county, I feel like that's something I have to say. So I am. Often, not always, but often, smoking marijuana while pregnant is a sign of addiction. Addictive behavior will impact your children when they are born. So if you are struggling with an addiction issue, please go get some help for that. I don't know any other way to say that. If you're struggling with addiction, please get some help. I did not know this. I learned this from our NICU director in the course of talking about this issue within the team. But if you use marijuana while you are breastfeeding, you can pass THC to your newborn. So what that does is it creates a recipe for disaster, because then mom is high, mom has breastfed baby, mom has passed THC to baby, baby is now high, mom and baby are now going to sleep together. And that is the co-sleeping, unspecified sleep, SIDS, impaired sleep recipe for death. Using marijuana and not breastfeeding can still create a recipe for danger when you combine it with unsafe sleep. Another point that's really important to note: a lot of babies just have natural holes in their hearts. So their hearts are immature when they're born. This happens to tons of children, you just never hear about it. So lots of babies are born and they have little teeny tiny holes in their hearts. Those hearts grow and close and never turn into heart murmurs or any kind of problem before they're 4 months old. But those things make oxygen flow very important. They make not getting into an impaired sleep environment very critical. So again, if you happen to be one of the unlucky parents who has a baby with a small hole in its heart and you're not aware of it, and you smoke weed and then you pass weed to your baby while you're trying to breastfeed, that's a recipe for disaster. So don't smoke marijuana when you are pregnant or when you are taking care of a newborn. Figure out something else, but don't do that. All right. So on a more positive note, and this is going to be a bizarre fact that I really kind of need you to work with me on. So Cabarrus County has the SUN Clinic now, the Substance Use Network Clinic. And we have had 40 mothers who have gone through SUN. So let me explain what the SUN is. So Dr. Suda was ready to retire, and thank goodness he decided he didn't want to. So he started the SUN Clinic. They deliver a collaborative, compassionate system of care for pregnant mothers who have a substance use disorder, their babies, and their families. But they are not dealing with marijuana. Marijuana is outside the scope of the Sun Clinic. The Sun Clinic is dealing with opioids. So if a mother is an opioid addict and she gets pregnant, she can go to the Sun Clinic and they can treat her. They have treated 40 mothers. They've not had a single mother die. They've not had a single baby die. The average age of those babies have made it to 38 and a half weeks gestation, and all of those mothers are doing great. So to be honest with you, I'm not worried about opioid babies in Cabarrus County as long as they're going through the Sun Clinic, because those babies we have a resource for them and this is another area where Cabarrus County is a leader, because other counties don't have this. When I started talking to the chief medical examiner about the Sun Clinic, she was like, "What do y'all have? What is this? Explain it to me." And so I went into a lot of detail with this. I went into great detail with her about this. So the model for this is called Eat, Sleep, Console, and it was developed by a doctor at Yale. Basically, the theory is that we teach addicted mothers to view their pregnancy positively. There's no greater love than the bond between mama and her baby. And a lot of women who are opioid addicts are also sexual abuse survivors. So what we've discovered is if we can give those women an opportunity to feel like they are going to get to care for their baby, they are going to get to take their baby home, they are going to have the psychosocial, emotional support that they need in order to be a good mother, a lot of these women are cleaning themselves up. The success rates with this have been astronomical. When the children are, so Dr. Suda basically helps these women get through the pregnancy. He gets them to that delivery point, so they're doing that in a healthy capacity. He keeps the mother-baby dyad together in the hospital. So what used to happen with addict mothers is their baby got twisted down to the NICU, so the baby was separated from the mother. We don't do that anymore with these kids. We're keeping them together. We're keeping them with their mom. We're keeping them in a quiet environment that's as understimulating as possible. They're in a special part of the hospital. They have a special pediatrician, Dr. Dodds, who supervises the baby to make sure that they're working really well together. We encourage breastfeeding if we can. All through this process, these women are getting mental health treatment. They're getting substance use therapy. They have a licensed clinical social worker who is working with them on how did we get here? Because there are always issues. Nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to become an addict today. There's always issues that lead up to that. So they're getting recovery support, right down to just giving them positive dental care. And those babies are living, and they're doing great. So that is currently being funded in large part by private foundations, by North Carolina Smart Start, and also it's called the Cross-Sector Innovations Initiative Grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. But my understanding is that they always need more funding for what they're trying to do. But I'm extremely proud of that. I think that is another contributing reason why our counties, while again, I'm appalled by our impaired sleep fatalities, our fatalities for impaired sleep are lower than other parts of the state, and that's because we have the Sun Clinic. That's 40 babies who would have been at high risk of being in this population who are now not because we're being able to treat them. And so I'm very proud of that. So I guess kind of to just end things, I'm really proud of our county. I'm from here. I was born here. I grew up in Mount Pleasant. I'm probably going to die here. And so I'm extremely proud of this county because what we did with partners probably saved 800,000 North Carolina citizens who were living in poverty from having subpar mental health assistance. And that wouldn't have happened without this county's help. So that's the first thing. The second thing I'm extremely proud of us over is that we are proactive about things like saying, hey, has anyone noticed the fact that we have a lot of substance abuse impacted babies that seem to be dying, and maybe that's why the impaired sleep or the safe sleep campaign is failing? Somebody needs to look at impaired sleep. That's a huge focus for myself and the Chief Assistant District Attorney for the remainder of the year with the state, is to try to advocate to get, let's just look at it. We could be wrong. Maybe if we poll all 100 counties, what we'll find is that safe sleep isn't failing because of impaired sleep, but I'll bet you $20 that's the reason. And then last, I'm proud of us because we have the Sun Clinic. Because other counties don't have the Sun Clinic, and if we didn't have the Sun Clinic, our rates of infant fatality would be far higher than what they are. So that's what I have this year. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have any questions, Paula, but I do have a couple of comments. I agree with you. This is one of our better reports that we've received, and I think this is the 8th one that I've received. This is probably the better one. But how long has the Sun Clinic been in use, and how do people get in touch with somebody with the Sun Clinic? What?
Ann Benfield, would you please come answer that question?
Well, you know, we do, believe it or not, have a rather large viewing audience, people that I would never think watch commissioners' meetings, but they are a lot of folks that do. And I would like for them to at least have an idea as to how to get in touch with people at the Sun Clinic that's got problems.
So this is Ann Benfield. Ann is the executive director of the Cabarrus Partnership for Children, and she is probably the brainchild behind the Sun Network and how we got here. Ann has made this her life's mission for at least 2 years, but probably longer than that. So Ann, please answer Lynn's questions.
Actually, about 6 years ago, Dr. Suda and I started talking about the Substance Use Network Clinic and the issues that we have with opioids in Cabarrus County. Dr. Suda decided to retire about 3 years ago, and I was waiting on him to retire so that he could work almost full-time in the Sun Clinic at the Cabarrus Health Alliance. So anyone can contact the Cabarrus Health Alliance, and I can't remember the number. I think it's 704-920-1000, and then they can just ask for the Sun Clinic, and then they'll be connected.
We've seen a lot of movement too between mothers, like when opioid addicts tend to know one another. And so what we've seen is when one mother goes through it and it's going well and she feels safe and like she's sustaining this, then her friends are saying, how are you doing this? And then when they wind up, so honestly, a lot of word of mouth referral in that community is how we're finding some of our moms.
Right, and we've had tremendous support from Atrium Health's emergency rooms, because that's where they usually go when they get messed up. And then we get calls from ER docs, and if that's on a weekend, then Dr. Suda sees them on Monday morning.
That's great. Well, you know, I know that you ladies, particularly Paula, I know particularly she is probably the strongest child advocate there is, not just in Cabarrus County, but anywhere. And I, for one, appreciate the efforts, and I'm amazed by the knowledge you have about all of this. And of course, you've been doing it a while, and you've been a very strong advocate. And then, Ann, of course, with the Partnership for Children, it's amazing that we got people like you that are willing to do that, and I thank you. I do thank you. On behalf of the citizens of Cabarrus County, I'll thank you.
Thank you.
Just one more question. Lynn had the second one, or the first question I had was, how did they get in touch with you? So we've answered that. Just back to slide 10, on the CAC numbers, are those referrals or are those substantiated, those numbers, just to be clear?
On the CAC referrals?
Yeah.
I do not have a substantiated number.
Okay.
Those are referrals.
Those are referrals, okay.
They are referrals, but I tend to think they probably are substantiated when you look at them in conjunction with how many children wound up moving on in the foster care system and how many referrals came through.
Okay, and that's what I suspected, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yes.
So you touched on this briefly, and I was thinking it while you were giving your presentation of it seems like, at least nationally, in the last 15 years, there really has been a very much a softening of the attitude around marijuana. And, you know, you read the news and you read statements of the people that want that done, and even public officials. I mean, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of DAs, like I think you mentioned, Mecklenburg not prosecuting those. And then maybe this is just giving you a chance to editorialize on that, but I mean, that's a contradictory message than what you just gave us. So
It is.
I'm not sure if that I mean, it may be that it's not too far gone, but it's sure starting to feel that way.
So-
And I just kind of wanted to get your comments on that.
Yeah, so Blake, that's actually a really good question, and that's something that we have kind of talked about a lot amongst ourselves. And so I think where we've decided to land with that is this. What the state does with regards to non-pregnant adults is the state's business. I'm not going to get into that. I have my personal opinions, but I'm not going to share my personal opinions with anyone on that, because I'm not trying to throw myself into the middle of controversy that really does not impact child welfare. But what I am saying is that we need, if the state ever does decide, yes, let's legalize marijuana for whatever reason, they need to be very cognizant of a campaign that is educational, that if you are pregnant, you do not need to use marijuana. They need to make sure that people understand you can secrete THC in breast milk. You can give your babies marijuana-laced breast milk. That is dangerous. They need to know your child can have a hole in their heart. They need to understand this is a way to kill your child, because none of these people wanted their baby to die. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And so we need to make sure that there is a concerted campaign, if this state ever legalizes marijuana, to also say, we need to make sure you're safe if you're pregnant. It's no different than what we do with women and alcohol. I mean, you know that if you are pregnant, fetal alcohol syndrome is a major issue. You should not be drinking alcohol while you are pregnant. Unfortunately, I think with a lot of the lackadaisical attitudes we have about marijuana, to hear people talk about it, it's the cure for everything. I mean, marijuana will cure cancer if you listen to people talk about it. I mean, it's magical, I mean, if you read the list of things that CBD is allegedly supposed to correct, the truth of the matter is that this stuff has not been studied. We don't know what it does. We don't know what it does on children. And what I can tell you in, 9 years of doing these reviews and going through the fatality reports with you guys is that I am not worried about child fatality in Cabarrus County unless you are smoking marijuana while you have a newborn. Because opioid addicts are going through the Sun Clinic, assuming that they are getting there and they are getting the treatment that they need. Those babies, we haven't lost one yet. I'm worried about the combination of marijuana, newborns, and pregnancy. And I think I would be doing a disservice. I mean, I'm a young mother myself. My children are 8, 6, and about to turn 4. So, I mean, I have given birth in this county recently within the last 5 years. I've had a baby at Atrium Cabarrus. I've had a baby in the NICU at Atrium Cabarrus. So I think I would be doing the young women of this community a disservice to not also say, listen to your doctor and don't smoke marijuana when you are pregnant. Don't believe anybody who tells you it's going to cure your nausea, it's going to minimize pain, it's going to help you get a good night's sleep. There are ways you can do those things, and they don't involve marijuana.
There's no question that that's a mixed message that they're getting, and unfortunately, the sounds like there's too many that are listening to it. However, that being said, I don't have any doubt that if the state of North Carolina ever goes down that road, that Paula Yost will be front and center with making sure that that information is presented to the people that need to hear it, and will be presented in a way that will be hard to not pay attention to. So thank you very much for that report. It's sobering news, but it's something that we have to hear. I think the pandemic certainly had an impact on some of the numbers that we saw today. And it'll be interesting to see what, in the years to come, if these are outliers, or if we have steady growth in the wrong direction, or if we correct back and start going in the direction that we want to be going. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Paula. And Ann, certainly appreciate that report. I especially appreciate your comments about the change in our LME, the departure from Cardinal. And I think that the 4 commissioners that are sitting across from me deserve a lot of credit for that. We had full support for that action and that process. And it took us a while to do it, and we talked about it a lot, and we went down a lot of different roads, but we're finally successful in making that change. And so thank you to all of them, and thank you for making us aware of the improvements that you've seen in working with partners. It's kind of ironic that you talked about the open network situation, which may not sound tremendously impactful to a lot of folks, but the county manager and I and several other representatives from the Health Alliance as well as Atrium Health spent the morning in Guilford County today looking at some mental health facilities that they have been able to develop there that we hope to replicate here. And that was one of the topics that we talked about, was the fact that some of the things that they have been successful in were things that we would not be able to do with a closed network.
That's right.
Like we've experienced before. So that opens up possibilities there, as well as the important points that you made about the transportation situation. That was another comment that I heard from a mental health professional today, was the percentage of families that are impacted with behavioral health issues that are limited in their treatment because of transportation obstacles. And that number, Mike, you may remember, it was extremely high number. I want to say it was 75 or 80% of those families had challenges in that area. So it's kind of, it's reinforcing to hear these from two different sources on the same day. So thank you very much for that. And I further would say thank you for making all of us aware of those issues that needed to be addressed to make this change on our service provider. So it's truly been a team effort, not only of this board, but a lot of folks as well. And we very much appreciate it. I also wanted to point out one more thing for folks that may be watching the presentation that you just made and ones in previous years. Their assumption probably is that this is your profession.
Oh, yeah, no.
That's what, well, and that's what I wanted to make clear, that you are a volunteer.
Yeah, this is the greatest job I've never gotten paid to do.
Right.
But I also don't want to get paid to do it. I don't want to, because I don't, people sometimes think I work for DSS. I don't, and I don't want to work for DHS. And I want to always be able to stand there to say this is an accountability issue, which I don't really have to do, but I will if I have to. And that's not just with DHS. I've spent the last 5 years doing that with Cardinal. You can't advocate for fair, reasonable accountability if your livelihood depends upon it. So no, I don't get paid for this, and I don't want to by anyone in the county at all for anything. I won't even take a mileage reimbursement.
Well, and my purpose for pointing that out is to express appreciation to you and to acknowledge the time commitment, time and resources, and certainly the mental commitment that you make to this work, and everybody in Cabarrus County benefits from it, and we sincerely appreciate it. And we appreciate you bringing this report to us. As you said, we don't like all the things that we see, but if we're not aware of the situations that are before us, then we can't effectively improve them or deal with them. So we very much appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move now to item 3.2 from Infrastructure and Asset Management, Courthouse Expansion Project Update, and we are pleased to have Mr. Billifer with us for that report.
Good afternoon. Lauren, could you display the pictures, please? Thank you. I'll kind of go through some milestones that we've already achieved across the street on the courthouse project, and then also some upcoming milestones, and then give a brief update on the public art project, since we have some updates on those. Over the last 30 days, the project team across the street has installed a gas meter and started running our main air handler and boiler. They've prepped for elevator temporary use. They've hung drywall on the 4th floor, resumed the exterior facade flow, and that picture is one of those, and I'll continue to talk about that, and set the 4th floor aluminum frames. And we also actually, just as late as last Friday, we connected the water system with the existing 1975 water system. That was our second try at that and was successful this time. So those are kind of what we've passed. Over the next 30 days, you'll start to see it button up a little bit. So they're going to prep for cooling and dehumidification, and obviously that is so that they can start putting in interior facades and different finishes. You'll see the buck hoist from the rear of the facility removed. So the buck hoist is something probably no one's ever seen. It's right near the base of the tower crane, and it's what's used to get all the heavy equipment and materials up to the different floors, and that'll go away. They'll start finishes, interior finishes on the 3rd floor, and then they'll start to come back and complete the brick and start the facade panels, both the wood-looking one and the concrete ones on the upper levels, and then start the ceiling on the 4th floor. And obviously, the whole design of kind of how the logistics work is, like I said, to get the dehumidification and cooling in the project so you can start everything on the interior. You won't be able to get any of your facades in. So if you can just scroll down through those pictures. So that kind of shows you your exterior facade. You're looking at your insulation, and then obviously your curtain wall or your aluminum frames and your glass. You can scroll down. That shows you your drywall on the 4th floor. I know it might not look like drywall, but it is in fact drywall. Keep scrolling. And then there's some different aerial versions from the flyovers that they were able to show. And it just kind of shows you the exterior of the building being buttoned up as they go through it. So I think over the next 2 months, you'll see a significant change in terms of it. It will no longer be a yellow building because of the insulation. So it won't look like a big banana. It'll start to look more like the courthouse. Those are the updates I have on the construction, and I'll give the board a chance to ask anything before I go into the public art component. Okay, well, I'm happy to announce that we have, out of 77 applicants, we are down to 3 finalists. And we have those interviews with the 3 finalists. They are scheduled for the 30th and 31st of March, and by then we will have the proposals from the 3 finalists. So they'll send those to me on Monday the 28th, and I'll review those and get those out to our committee, and then they actually present on those proposals. So they tell us what they were thinking and kind of give us an idea of what they're envisioning, whether it be materials, size, scope. So I've spent the last 10 days working with our design team and our construction team and providing every type of AutoCAD, Revit file, rendering of what that lobby is, what type of structural supports in it, what type of electricals in it, the distances, so that these artists, they're very, they need obviously to understand the space a lot better than we had just put in the RFQ. So it's been a lot of information. I've talked to all 3 finalists probably over 5 or 6 times and debrief them on how their interviews went, and then also let all of the other semifinalists and all the other submitters know that they were not chosen. So what I'm planning on is forcing my art committee to help me make a decision on the 31st, so that I'll be up in front of the board the first work session to show you who the finalist is and ask for the blessing to move forward. And the reason that is obviously we are under time crunch to install that piece of art. So, you know, that public lobby, all the finishes will be complete, and then we'll have to come back and install the art. Well, all the anchors and everything that you use and all the electrical for that will have to be installed before you button up that room and install that art. So we have a very, very tight time frame. So that is my plan, to come in front of the board in April with that, as long as there's consensus from the committee. And again, a big thank you to all the members, 2 of which sit on this board. It's been a lot of time into this, a lot of time. Any questions?
Questions for Kyle? I consider you to be a man that keeps a lot of statistics and records and that sort of thing. So my question to you would be to venture a guess as to how many times we have discussed that courthouse building in a public session as we are today.
Over the past 15 years of my career, or just at the start of this project?
Yeah, over the past 15 years.
In front of the board, over 75 or 80, because we went through 2 different master plannings. We demoed the jail, rebuilt the courthouse annex to provide them additional room to expand, and then all of the selection and programming we've done on this, every public art, every GMP, so yeah, probably in that excess.
Well, you're a little bit lower than what I was going to say. I was going to say at least 100
Yeah.
times that we've talked about that building, and my point is that only in the last 3 weeks have I had a large number of people to come to me and say, what in the world is that big building that has erupted in front of the governmental center? So people are just now truly seeing what we've been talking about. And of course, a part of that explanation is, well, why is it so large? And to which I reply, the current courthouse that opened in 1975, the population of Cabarrus County was around 75,000 people, maybe a little bit less. And the population of Cabarrus County today is, and I looked it up yesterday, they've now got it listed as 235,000 people. And then the projections for the next 30 years get us up to close to 400,000 people. So that's, I'm repeating that answer again for the benefit of people watching, that was something that we had to deal with, much like we have to address expansion of our schools with that population growing and all other things. But
We've done over about 10 renovations in that courthouse, part of which, even the courthouse annex that I know is now not standing, but we did over 10 throughout the years of renovations to courtrooms, renovation to electrical, renovations to HVAC, front counters, building a new courtroom. So there was a lot that went on in that building to try to continuously squeeze. And as I sat through one of our final furniture meetings with our judges and our DAs this week, they were showing me pictures of their offices and how we have furniture stacked on top of furniture stacked on, I mean, just things that make me cringe in terms of safety and egress. So we have folks jammed into a lot of places over there.
yeah, and it's because of those things that
Yes.
building has exceeded 50 years of life in
Yes.
serving, so.
We've squeezed every drop out of it.
Yeah, well,
I
thank you for your efforts.
The
Yes, sir.
other interesting fact about the building is how many full-time employees have you got over there, or full and part-time? 20?
The county, well, I mean, with custodial staff, we have maybe 5, that's it.
5.
Yeah, the rest
So-
are state.
Everybody else is state or federal employees
Yeah.
that work over there. However, for those in the audience, we are required by the state to build their structures, and then they are the ones that get to use those nice structures.
And maintain, don't forget to
And we have
build.
to, yeah, we have to
maintain.
build it and maintain it forever. So for the next 50 years, Kyle's 5 will probably turn into 10 or 15 or 20 over those years.
Yeah, we'll be
And
adding
we'll still be-
9 alone next year, and for the sheriff's department, over 12 to be able to secure that building in terms of just the square footage increase. And I tell people when they ask me, what is it, I say, it's the new post office that the government's building, and I get out of the room. That's in case you want to use that.
Any other questions for Kyle? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next up, we are happy to have the innovation report from Todd Shanley.
Sorry about that.
Good evening. This evening, I'm going to bring you an innovation report that I know that we've been here several times talking about different things we did during the pandemic that focused on pandemic issues and things like that we've done. But I think we've highlighted the fact that the world didn't stop during the pandemic. So during that time, there were process improvements and departments that needed help. And one of those was our EMS division. Justin Brines had reached out to me at one point and said, hey, we're having an issue with a form and a document that we'd like to bring to you guys, and we need to be able to get digital signatures on that document. And the ability for that would have been quite simple, to be able to purchase something. But I always encourage our team to take it another step and really pull at that string and develop what that process issue is. And Mike and I had talked a little while back about trying to bring some more of these to you as far as true process improvements that we've come up with. And Justin Brines, the Deputy Director at EMS, has always challenged me to be able to help do that. He's always bringing us challenges. I think we could probably do every other month an EMS innovation, because I think they do a lot of that. Landon and Justin are going to come up here and tell you a little bit about what they accomplished with the EMS airway evaluation application and how far they took it. You guys want to come up?
Good afternoon. As Todd mentioned, we have a very specific form that we use for, that the state requires for when we perform drug-assisted intubation, which is when we give medications to paralyze a patient to manage their airway. The state, obviously, for obvious reasons, is very specific about the quality assurance channel of that procedure, because it is a high-risk procedure that we do well, but there's documentation that has to be completed with that. So there's a specific form that has to be filled out by our paramedics in the field, who have to fill out the information, then they have to get a doctor's signature, and then they have to bring that form back to me for some data entry. Then I have to get it to our medical director, Dr. Waggy, who signs the form. Then I have to take the form and send it back to the state for their repository to review the information. So it's a multi-step process. And as Todd mentioned, I'm sure you've all heard of things on the market where you can do electronic signatures. But the internal workflow to be able to get it from the hands of the paramedic to our medical director, ultimately to the state medical director, is a multi-step process. So when I mentioned it to Todd, I was looking for the easy solution. And Todd had some ideas that obviously was the beginning of this application. And I'm proud to say that we field tested it. Probably within the next couple of days, it'll be live where all of our staff are using it. We've field tested it and got it to that point. So Landon's going to kind of show you how the form looks on the data entry side, and then what it actually looks like once it is formulated into a PDF.
So as Justin said, this is a multi-step process. So I'm going to show you what it looks like on the screen in just a moment, but just so you're aware, the process starts with a main form that an EMT might fill out when they're performing an intubation. It moves on to two approval steps, one for Justin and then one for Dr. Waggy as the medical director. Once those approvals are kicked off, the application will fill out the state form and an internal form for EMS for their internal record keeping. So that process goes from multiple forms being filled out and people having to pass that back and forth, and having, I believe you said some of your staff members would have to bring that to a mailbox.
Correct. Yep.
Late
So-
at night even.
Well, physically bringing it to the main station to end up in my mailbox.
Right.
You know, so having to physically drop it off, which is not always the most efficient, so.
Right. So this is the main form, and this is what EMTs would fill out when they're performing an intubation. It collects a lot of data, anything from patient demographic to the number of rescuers, as well as the training for those rescuers that are helping assist with intubation, any type of patient vital information such as heart rate and blood pressure, et cetera, as well as they track complications that go along with administering an airway, an advanced airway. And then at the end of the form, after they capture all of that data, as Justin said, they are able to capture the receiving physician's signature. And that signature will then go on to the state form, as well as the internal form that EMS keeps for their records. So once all of this is filled out and they fill out all the appropriate fields, it goes on to the next approval step, and that is actually at Justin's level. So he is able to review these forms. If there's something like a typo, something that needs to be corrected, he can perform those at his level. And then he can also go through and just review all of the data that comes off of these forms that the EMTs will fill out. He can see the doctor's signature, as you can see on the screen there, and then he can put his approval in on the app itself. Now, once that happens, it's going to go into the medical director's queue. As he said, Dr. Waggy takes care of that portion of the review. And so,
Lanny, can you blow that up larger so everybody can see? If you can.
I don't know if I can. Yeah, I don't know if I can.
Just
I can
mix it
try
a
to
little.
zoom in a little bit like that.
That'll work, yeah. That's
That's
good.
maybe a little, there we go, okay. So Dr. Waggy has a very similar, this looks very similar to when Justin approves it. It's a table of all the submissions. They get notification as soon as the submission comes in, so they know they need to go ahead and go do the approval steps on that. So this one, like I said, for Dr. Waggy, she has a very similar view on this approval step, and she sees a read-only view of the form. And if I can get that, there we go. Sorry, when I zoom in, it stops the video there. So she sees a read-only view of that form, and she is able to, like I said, view all of the data just like Justin is, and then she's able to, at the very end of this form process, to add her signature to the form itself. So she can add any type of status to the form. They have predetermined statuses such as chart reviews done, it's approved, etc. She can add that to the form, sign that herself, and once she submits that approval, that's when this process kind of culminates into, I think, probably the best part. You're filling out both the state form and the internal form all at once. So the EMTs on the ground, they do that process once. They don't have to think about it ever again. It's going to populate the appropriate forms, depending on what type of innovation it is. And then that gets sent to Justin. He can put anything he needs to in for keeping internal records, as well as submit that to the state so they can do their review of the innovations. So that is the main part of the application. Does anybody have any questions for either me or Justin or Todd?
I think one thing I'd add too, and I don't know if you have a shot of it, but the form itself that the state requires is very specific. So we had to start with the parameters of, we couldn't, this looks nice, it's a web form basically now, but it has to spit out on a form that the state requires. And so that was the first ask was, I called the state and they said, no, it's got to be on this form. So all this data that you see actually goes onto a state form that they require. So that was, as Landon mentioned, that's kind of the coolest part of the whole thing to me. I mean, we can enter data all day long, but to be able to put it on that form. And then the other thing is this allows us to store metadata or discrete data that we can actually search and do stuff with, where you've got a piece of paper filed in a drawer, you're flipping through that paper. So, and I would be remiss if I didn't just highlight the fact that the innovation and the collaboration with our IT department is second to none. I've been with the county for almost over 22 years, and Todd and I have worked alongside each other for a long time, but when we have an ask or when there's something that needs to be done, they do a great job with it. And I just returned from a state conference, and I talked to folks that are not as fortunate as we are. I know we toot our own horn quite a bit, but I just wanted to touch on that. So are there questions now? Sorry, I just wanted to wrap a few things up there.
I'm sorry, before you guys get to the questions, I think one of the highlights that, the gentleman glossed by was Lana developed this application, so I'm sure everyone's filled out a a mortgage statement using DocuSign. Yeah, so DocuSign is very, it's not an inexpensive application, and that's what we had discussed purchasing. Landon was able to develop this with in-house technologies that we already owned, so $0 expensed for, short of Landon's time, and, he's quite a valuable asset to us, but, regardless, we would have had to expend that with whatever application we did. And then, and doing all of that in-house, and then I don't know how many, it's calculable, but the mileage that we're saving in gasoline alone from driving, a document across town and being able to do that. And then Dr. Waggy's time as well, just trying to improve that process. There's dollars that we will never realize that we are saving with the work that these two gentlemen accomplished with this. I know it seemed like a pretty, great, you guys did a forum, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the background to that point, and they worked very hard. I'm very, very proud of what they've accomplished.
So when it's completed, can you transmit it to the state medical director electronically?
Yes,
or-
sir. Yep, they actually have, they have a place where I have to upload it, basically, and then it goes into their repository, but they currently want the PDF version of the form. Like, they don't have a way to, it would be nice if there was a seamless way where this would just go to them, but basically I just generate the PDF and then I submit it, but that only takes, that's no different than what I've been doing all along. It only takes a couple minutes to do that, so.
So how many times in a year do you think you would intubate a person have to fill out one of these forms?
So for the drug-assisted intubation, this procedure that we do here, I think last year last year was a little bit different because of COVID. Our numbers were a little higher than normal, but it's not uncommon for us to do somewhere between 70 to 100 of these a year. And we intubate more patients than that without drugs, and this form is also used for that. So, you take that into combination, could be upwards of 150, 200, depending on what's going on with the year, so.
Well, congratulations. I can just imagine 150 times making a physical trip to headquarters to turn in a form that you had to fill out while
On paper, yeah.
on duty and take the time to do
Right.
that, and then Dr. Waggy to have to come by and physically sign
Yeah,
that. And the savings is huge. It's
Yeah, part of I was emailing it to her, but, then they would get lost in the inbox and that kind of thing. And then she did physically come sign some of them, but we've made we do a lot of, electronic documentation, but this is the one form that the state still wants on paper. And part of it is because of this high acuity procedure. So, this has really taken us to the next, level of being able to do this, to the point that I'm sure there's probably some other counties that are going to want to know how to use it. But
Oh,
so.
absolutely. Well, this is especially impressive to those of us who are of an age that we remember when email was invented.
Right.
And there were no cell phones, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. Any other questions for these gentlemen? Well, thank you. We appreciate you bringing that report, and we appreciate what you do, all of you. Okay, we will move now to discussion items for action, and first up is item 4.1 from Active Living in Parks, part of grant request, and we're happy to have Londa Strong to present that item.
Good afternoon. I was looking to see if it was still afternoon or evening yet, so I think we're still in afternoon. What we have tonight, this afternoon, is a request to submit a Park and Recreation Trust Fund grant. Following the procedures that the county has, we've filled out the grant application request that has been approved with money is in the budget. This would be for the Mount Pleasant Park. And the items, the parks that we would use would be the athletic fields, the playground, the trails, and the restroom building is what we would request. So if you may remember, the last time we were here, and what I was just handing back to Chairman Morris was the letter of congratulations on the $100,000 that we received for the land in, next to Rob Wallace Park in Midland. Might not be as easy this coming year. There's a lot more money in the park fund, but everyone knows that, so there's lots of people applying. So we're trying to get a really good grant. We've had some public input meetings. There's actually 2 tonight going on, and we have 1 more. That's the request, is to apply for this grant.
Excellent. Well, we are always happy to receive the $100,000 that was in this last letter, and then the possibility of more. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Londa on this item?
Is it an all or nothing thing, or could they give partial?
That they could give
500?
partial.
Yeah,
They don't
okay.
normally, but they,
I thought,
at times, they will say, we'll give you half of it or whatever.
What was the match on this, Londa?
500, it's 50/50, and we were going for the 500,000,
Okay.
which is the maximum.
All righty. Well, thank you very much. And the next item we have is from Active Living in Parks. Now, I have Byron down, but I don't see Byron.
Right, and we pulled that one. Sorry, Lauren, we didn't. We just, yeah, it was a last minute thing.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, next is item 4.3, that is appointments to boards and committees. You all have that information before you in your agenda, and I think you were emailed that as well earlier. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss on that one? If not, we will go to item 4.4 from Cooperative Extension, 4-H After School Canon Foundation Grant, and we are delighted to have Tracy LeCompte with us for that item.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Like Londa said, we all kind of working together to get some grants and different things here. So I'm here on behalf of the Cabarrus 4-H After School Program. Our after school program associate is Beverly Bolenbecker. And right as I took into this position as the county extension director, they had applied for a $25,000 grant through the Cannon Foundation. We were approved with that grant, and that money, we need to look at just doing some budget amendments to allow for that grant within the budget. It is a non-matching funds grant. The grant is to be used to help with a part-time staff member, permanent part-time staff member, to help with the after-school program to get materials to the classrooms that our after-school program supports. Listening to everyone else at these meetings, I'm always fascinated by the amount of stuff that Cabarrus County supports across the board. And as a state employee as well as a county employee, I get to talk to county employees across the state. And we are truly blessed to have so many supports and so many things that we are able to do here in Cabarrus County. And one of the biggest things that we do within our 4-H program is support our after-school program. Beverly serves 20-plus after-school sites as a partnership with the Cabarrus County Schools through the Kids Plus program within those school sites. Since COVID, she has not been able to go into the classrooms and do those types of hands-on learning experiences that we offer through 4-H. So she and the program assistant as well have developed kits. And so this grant is fundamental in getting those kits to be able to go to the classrooms and serve in the same capacity that our 4-H program has always had, that high level of expectation and partnership within the schools. The grant is dispersed on January 1st of every year, so it goes through a calendar year cycle. So we have line items within the budget, but those line items are zero until we get the grant approval, and then they go through that. So we're asking for the $25,000 to be set up in the income accounts and then dispersed into the 6 different accounts for expenses, 5 of which are related to that part-time permanent employee, and then the other chunk is for the expenses associated with those costs. Now, the schools are back open, so they are allowing Beverly and her team to go into the schools to do, within the Kids Plus program, to do some hands-on interaction with the youth in those situations. So we are super excited about that. There are over 1,200 youth in that program that she serves regularly. Within the last year, we've built over 750 kits that are going in and out of those classrooms. So as you can imagine, that is a daily occurrence of putting them all together, getting them ready, sending them out to all 20 sites, going back, bringing them back, restocking them, redoing them, re-going them out. They are all based on some sort of educational hands-on, focusing on either STEM, agriculture, literacy. They all have different literacy components within them, but they're all hands-on activities for the kids to be able to learn through that environment that 4-H is able to offer. Are there any questions about anything within that budget aspect?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to the Cannon Foundation. I think
Absolutely.
anybody that lives in Cabarrus County is well aware, or should be well aware, of the many different aspects the Cannon Foundation contributes to our community, and certainly this is an important one of those.
Absolutely. And the Cannon Foundation has been a super supporter of Cabarrus 4-H for a very long time, and we are very excited to continue that partnership with them.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to item 4.5, public-private partnership for library and senior center. And Rodney Harris is going to address that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is an exciting one that has been years in the making. I know the county manager, Mr. Billifer, Mr. Marshall have worked on this for several years. And about a month ago, you allowed us to pursue a formal public-private partnership to make this happen, to build a library and senior center in the western portion of the county. And so this item here will set the public hearing to allow us to enter into a development contract with CK Lake Point, Childress Klein, to build a 40,000 square foot facility. And so we will need a public hearing, and then you will be able to vote on that development contract. We also will post a public notice tomorrow in the Independent Tribune, and we have a 30-day requirement that allows the public to see the basic terms of the agreement. And so you can see in your agenda packet, this is envisioned as up to a 20-year lease, although our intention would be to purchase the facility within the first 2 years. The rent initially will be $712,000 a year, and then you can see the calculation for the purchase price, which will be based on a capitalization rate, and then the construction cost for the facility. Childress Klein will be responsible for building essentially the shell of the building, and then the county will contract to build the interior and do all of the interior finishes. Let me see. And then, like I said, the expectation is this facility would open probably in late 2024, and we would complete the purchase in 2026. So any questions on that? And you can see from the map that I've put up there, just for those watching at home, this is in the Afton Ridge area. And so it's off of Glen Afton here, so you can see 85. You can see the sort of the super target, and this is a parcel right behind there that we would be constructing this facility on. Any questions?
So I'll ask the same question about this one I did about the courthouse. How many years have we been discussing this project and looking at this property and trying to come up with a workable plan?
Oh, gosh. It's probably 3 or 4 years now, I would say, maybe more. And just finding, the first mission was to find a location in the western part of the county that was suitable from an access situation, but then also from a cost. And as you know, that side of the county is growing like crazy, and the prices of land are going up every day. So we were lucky. We looked at several different places and brought a few back to you. They just didn't work out, but this is one that we feel comfortable with, and we feel comfortable working with the developer as well. And look forward to the opportunity to get it started under construction in the next little bit of time.
Yeah, and I think my intention for asking that question was, I think folks that watch the meeting or read a news report about our meeting might think that's something we just came up with that idea and did it in one night. And that's not at all the case. There are a lot of years of work by staff and discussion by this board that leads up to being able to successfully execute a project like this. And, you know, and I'm particularly enthusiastic about it because it accomplishes what I think is a worthy goal of trying to get our services out closer to where people live. And so more people can take advantage of those. And I know at one point we talked about some flexible office space where our building inspectors or some of our human services folks might be able to
Yeah, to
perform
plug in,
duties out in
instead
the
of having to
area.
drive back downtown. So
Yeah.
between there and the, our new facility at the Milestone Building, so that will give us some access points for everybody to be able to stop, plug in, do some work instead of driving back downtown. So, and as we know, that side of the county is growing fast, and our services are all focused on this part of the county, so we need to get them out there to make them be more accessible than they are.
Excellent. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on that discussion? Okay, and that, we will have a public hearing at our regular meeting in 2 weeks, and that'll be part of our regular agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
You moving pretty quick there. Rodney, do we have any type of estimation of what it's gonna cost to do the upfit? Because basically what you said, all we get is 4 walls. Is that right? We're just getting a shell.
So I think Kyle's in the back, and he may want to chime in. The original budget that we have planned in the capital improvement plan for this is about $25 million, and that includes the entire project. And so that would be the shell, what we would pay Childress Klein to build that, plus the upfit.
Okay. But we don't have okay, 25 million is what we've got allocated for that, okay? We didn't by chance approach the town council of Kannapolis for some collaboration on this? Because since it's in Kannapolis, but then I got to thinking, well, we're doing the same thing in Mount Pleasant, and we haven't approached them either. Even, I don't know that we would, but I sort of felt like that the town of Kannapolis was pretty receptive of what we wanted to do and might have collaborated with us on some of the expense. So I don't know whether we
We
talked
did.
to them or whether we didn't.
We, not at the board level, we had conversations at the staff level with both the Concord and Kannapolis. While this is located in Concord, we also ran a survey of our card holders for that area of the county, and there were probably more Concord card holders than there were Kannapolis. There was quite a few of both, but the numbers for Concord probably exceeded Kannapolis. But it will actually be in the city limits of Kannapolis at its place. And we have had those conversations. There have not been any commitment to contribute any cash, but if you would like us to continue those conversations, we will definitely do so.
Well, truthfully, I think it's worthwhile because you've got an excellent town council to work with, an excellent mayor, and they're proactive just like we are, forward-thinking, visionary type people. And actually, since it's going to be in their city limits, you know, it's going to be another quality of life for them just as much as it is for Concord and Cabarrus County. So I personally would like to see us pursue that, just like we did with the deck over here and other things that we've done with other municipalities.
Yeah, the original, when all of the original libraries were built within the municipalities, there was some participation from there. I think it was an unwritten, that the cities contributed to that first one. As we're starting on the second round of libraries expanding in the different cities, and then we have not, we've had those discussions, but nothing formal between the two boards.
Well, the difference between now and then is we're talking $25 million, and they probably were never near that much, you know, and that's just my thoughts, guys. You know, I think it would be good to talk to them in a more formal way and see if there's not some level of participation to help us with the funding.
Yeah, I think it's important, and of course Mike touched on this too, is that was one of the primary attributes of this location, was the fact that it was just about as close to the Concord-Kannapolis line as we could get to serve a broader area of the western part of the county, so certainly worth exploring. Any other questions or comments? Okay, in that case, we will move to item 4.6. This is an item regarding retention payments for county employees. As you all know, we have had a variety of federal funds that have come down for COVID relief and economic relief in the county. And as we discussed at our retreat 2 weeks ago, we talked about these incentives to help to retain county employees and to express appreciation to them for their continued, and I'll just read the synopsis from the item here. In gratitude for their continued service and sacrifice, we recommend providing a one-time retention payment to county employees using federal funds based on the presented plan, which I'll read following this. The one-time payments would be prorated based on pandemic service time and whether the employee is full or part-time. We've read a lot of news accounts of various counties, municipalities, school systems, and others that have provided these bonuses to their employees in appreciation for going above and beyond the call of duty. During the past 2 years, we've been a little slow to do that because we have been, in my opinion, very carefully looking at the needs of folks in our county. We've had, and we've heard Deputy County Manager Harris talk quite a bit about the business grants that we've provided, the mortgage assistance, the rental assistance, and a number of other programs, and some of the grants that we've made to nonprofits in the community. Rodney, what am I missing?
That covers all the big ones.
Yeah. So we have taken care of those areas first, and of course, you're all very aware of that and talked about it a great deal. So what all of us as a board had agreed upon at our retreat 2 weeks ago was for full-time employees that were hired before March 30th of 2020 would receive a $5,000 bonus. For full-time employees hired before March 30th, 2021 would receive a $2,000 bonus. For those that were hired before March the 1st of 2022, it would be a $1,000 bonus. And then for part-time employees, non-seasonal, if they were hired before March 30th, 2020, it would be $1,000. Before March 30th, 2021 would be $500. And those hired before March 1st, 2022 would be $250. I think that, we're talking about, over a 2-year period of time that we've been dealing with this situation. And I think it was really important as we talked at our retreat, during this period of time, there are a lot of situations where folks were not going to work, were working from home. We've all seen all the the different working situations that have existed, but for most of these county employees, they never missed a beat. You know, this includes all of our employees at the Sheriff's Department that were on the job every single day, dealing with every single situation. Our EMS folks never missed a call during that time. Our folks at Infrastructure and Asset Management continued right on with the services they did, sanitizing our buildings and all of those responsibilities. And I'm reluctant to specify those because we can't possibly name all of them. But all of our human services employees, you know, these are not people that are sitting behind desks or sitting behind computers doing Zoom calls. They were going out into people's homes. They were going out and investigating these child abuse situations that we've heard in that child fatality report. And the list is very, very long. So, I mean, we're talking about, in many cases, life-saving functions that these folks were performing. So, you know, I'm happy. First of all, I would propose that we suspend the rules and go ahead and vote on this tonight so that we can get this in place and moving. And so I'll certainly open up the floor for anybody to make a motion or to add to any of the comments that I've made.
Well, I want to add a couple of comments, then I'll second the motion. But what I wanted to add to it was, during the peak of the pandemic, I don't know how many we had, Mike. You'd probably know at some point, or maybe Lundy would know, but we had a lot of people that ended up with COVID, and they were out, the quarantine and all of that. And while those folks were out, their coworkers had to pick up the load for them. Not only did they do their own, but they had to pick up the load for those that was out. And county services, infrastructure management, all of them, you know, and I tell you, it was just, you know, amazing how this county pulled together to get through the pandemic. And for me, this is an easy decision. It's a very easy decision because they deserve something for going over and above what they were required to do. My only question, though, for Mike, the board, whatever, is you got a person here that was hired before 3/30/2020. And if we approve this tonight, it would be effective tomorrow, I assume. But if you've got a person that quit yesterday or the day before, how does that come to play with this bonus? Do they get it or they don't get
If
it?
they quit yesterday, they're no longer a county employee.
Well, I'm just,
Yeah.
you know, so it's not retroactive. You
No,
quit today, it's over
these are
today.
for current county employees that fall in those categories.
That's sort of what I thought,
And
but
I'll look to staff to,
That's the way
Confirm.
we are understanding it.
Yes.
It became effective today. So,
Okay.
yes.
well, I'll second the motion to suspend the rules, Mr. Chairman.
okay, we have a motion on the floor to suspend the rules and a second. Is there further discussion? And if the rest of you we got time to talk some more after that. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes unanimously. And I would now entertain a motion to approve the use of federal funds for one-time retention payments to full and part-time employees, and to approve the associated budget amendment and project ordinance as I just read. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I'll now open up the floor for discussion on that. I think we've said a lot, but sincerely, we have an incredible group of employees that work for the county, and they have done a tremendous job. And of course, we value them all the time, and And this is an opportunity to express that in a real tangible way that hopefully will make a positive impact.
Just one more thing too, just to more or less reiterate. Sometimes, the citizens may think that we're just throwing money away. We're not just throwing money away. This was federal government money sent to use for COVID-related issues. And if this wasn't COVID-related, I don't know what you'd call it. So I think that it's a very good use, in my opinion, probably the best use of those particular funds. Not that we don't have a long list of other things that we can take care of. There's a long list of other things that we can do with the remaining money in that particular fund that we got. But for this part, though, I think that we owe it to these people, and I'm just so glad we're able to do it.
Well, thank you. And it is, we do have it labeled as a retention payment, and that from where I sit says that we value you, we appreciate you, and we want you to continue to work for Cabarrus County. Any other discussion or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next up is from DHS, budget revision for additional funds, and we're happy to have Anthony Hodges with us.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak with you tonight. This first item I have is for a couple of different funding, additional funds we're receiving for our nutrition program, our Congregate Nutrition Lunch Plus, excuse me if I can talk, Lunch Plus program. When the state legislature passed their budget back in November for FY22, they actually added about a 4% increase for home and community care block grant funding. For Cabarrus County, that ended up being $61,104. And what the advisory committee, the HCCBG advisory committee decided and voted to do with that money was to split it evenly between Congregate Nutrition or Lunch Plus and our Meals on Wheels program. So for Congregate, we're getting $30,552. Now that does require a 10% county match, which is $3,395 for that additional funds. And also we found out we are also getting funding through the ARPA funds through the Division of Aging and Adult Services and our Area Agency on Aging for Congregate Nutrition for our Lunch Plus program for $100,224, and that funding can be spent from now through September 30th, 2024. And those funds have no match. That's 100% funds with no match required for that. So I'd ask that you would approve the revised funding plan for HCCBG and also approve the budget amendments for the additional HCCBG funds and the ARPA funds for Congregate Nutrition. If you have any questions, be glad to answer them.
Questions for Anthony? I would say if we have to pay a match of $3,395 to receive $61,000 in funding, that's a pretty good investment. And happy that we can help out Meals on Wheels as well as those folks that are able to come to our sites.
Sure.
Any other questions for Anthony? All right, thank you, sir. And I think you have the next item up also.
Yes, sir. Yes, this is also an additional request for approval of a budget amendment for additional funds. Again, the North Carolina Division of Aging and Adult Services through ARPA funding has created a Adult Protective Service Essential Funds for each of the counties, and we're receiving $15,426 to be spent between now and December 31st of this year. These funds are for any individuals that have been substantiated that abuse, neglect, or self-neglect or exploitation have occurred, and to provide services to help to remedy that situation. That could be either medical care, assistance with personal care, food, nutrition type items, housing, heat, any of those things that would help assist them to prevent any type of further neglect or abuse from occurring. And again, those funds have no county match. And again, we have until December 31st of this year to spend those funds.
Questions for Anthony? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, item 4.9 from Emergency Management, additional emergency management performance grant funds, and we're happy to have Steve Langer with us for that item.
Well, good evening, Commissioners. It sounds like tonight is the night for a lot of additional grant funding, so my item is no different. Emergency Management has the opportunity to receive some additional one-time funding as a part of our Emergency Management Performance Grant. That amount is $23,552. This is considered a match grant. However, the county puts more into the emergency management program than it is receiving. So therefore, that money is already budgeted and there's no additional funding that would need to be provided. We are asking the board to make the consideration of approving this tonight. This funding is looking to come pretty quick. North Carolina Emergency Management is looking to pay it out before the end of the month. So not knowing that time frame, with the time constraint, we would ask that it is a pleasure of the board to approve this tonight.
Excellent, thank you. Questions for Steve? Okay, I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules of procedure. You have a question first? No, I was trying to make a motion. Excellent. Do I hear a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And I would now entertain a motion to accept the additional grant funds as described. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, 4.10 from Finance, audit contract for fiscal years ending June 30th, 2022, and we're happy to have Wendy Hagler with us to talk about that one.
Hello. So each year, the Local Government Commission requires the board to approve the audit. 2 years ago, the Finance Department went out for a bid, and Martin Starnes was the auditors chosen. So we're in our third year, and the cost is $66,860. So I just need approval for the audit contract.
Okay, questions for Wendy? All right, I think you got the next several, so
Yes.
keep rolling.
So the next item is the reimbursement resolutions for our 2022 B LOBs. So we will go out for a $160 million draw program in May. We're going to make the first draw program permanent debt, and then we will open up a new draw program. So there's several projects that there's 7 reimbursement resolutions and 1 update to an existing reimbursement resolution. So it's roof replacements at Concord High School, C.C. Griffin Middle School, Central Cabarrus High School, Weddington Hills Elementary School, and Bethel Elementary School, and the replacement of R. Brown McAllister Elementary School, replacement of Northwest Cabarrus High School, and this is just the architect portion in this draw program. The replacement, or a new Mount Pleasant Library and Senior Center, equipment warehouse and ITS relocation, new radio tower, a public park, and then, like I said, the supplemental resolution to increase the EMS headquarters from $16 million to $18 million. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Wendy? Okay.
All right, the next item is one that we discussed at the retreat. Cabarrus County Schools came before you and requested $2.4 million for mobile unit relocation and upfits. So this would be the budget amendment and the budget, or the project ordinance to appropriate those funds for the schools.
Questions on this item, Commissioners? I think we did have pretty robust discussion about this with our representatives from Cabarrus County Schools talking about these mobile units and the growth in the county that's requiring the addition and relocation. So, yeah, we've talked about this a lot already.
All right.
Back in the back if you need it.
And Tim Louder is with us. He might want to talk about it some more.
Well, he's here for the next item,
Well,
agenda
we're
item.
going
But
to
he's-
share all of it with him. But I think we're good to move to item 4.13.
So I'll invite him up to, Brian Cohn was scheduled to come, he had a scheduling conflict, so Mr. Louder was, came to discuss this with us. So the budget, what they are requesting, I'll just go over the budget amendment and I'll let him explain. So the budget amendment is moving money from land acquisitions to architects to cover additional architect cost. So it's no additional money, we're just moving money from land to architects.
Yes, as you know, the construction industry is not in our favor right now. And our preliminary design, as we came into DDs and got our construction manager at risk on board, they identified that we were going to be well over budget. And so we go back and try to find ways to bring it back into budget. And in many ways, we designed the building originally with metal, insulated metal panels on the second floor, hoping, in the past, that's been $5 to $6 per square foot cheaper. They tell us now it's about $10 more than masonry. And we're like, oh my goodness. So, okay, well, we had to go back and look at that. We had designed it with overhangs to allow us not to have to put covers over our doors for our first and second grade storage. So that had to pull that back in order to make the brick go continuous all the way up to the top. We also reduced the heights of the ceilings to be able to build the brick walls without having to put in a brick ledger that costs a lot of money on the outside. So quite a few things we did to change the design to be able to get back about $7 million pulled back in toward budget. But in order to do that, it takes quite a bit of redesign and redrafting. As they build models nowadays from, used to you just did a sketch and then everybody said, okay, take the sketch and guess at what the cost was. Now when they start design, they actually build the model from the ground up, and by the time you get to full schematics, you're almost halfway in the DDs by that point in time, and of course it requires quite a bit of drafting. So this is what that component allows us to do, is spend about $293,000 additional monies to help save what at this point in time is estimated to be about $6.6 million in the overall cost.
Tim, this just, it's in the wording here, just wanted to make sure that you're moving it from the land account, so
Yes,
you've
sir.
already purchased any additional land that you need?
Well, we anticipated having to buy quite a bit of land in that intersection to put a roundabout.
Right.
But now that the NCDOT and the city of Concord have decided all they want to do is have an offset signals, the only thing we have to purchase is maybe some small right-of-ways just for some poles for the actual signalization. So there was much less purchase.
So hopefully, we're just moving money within the same account so that we can cover these.
As long as the 58 covers it.
Right.
The 58 should,
That's what's left.
yeah, 58 should more than cover what little bit of easement we have to get for the poles.
Additional questions for Mr. Louder? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Oh, and they were gonna. They want to suspend the rules.
Oh, yes, there's a request to submit
Oh,
suspend the
okay.
rules.
Sorry.
Thank you.
All right, then we will once again entertain a motion to suspend the rules of procedure. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes, and I would entertain a motion to grant Cabarrus County Schools request, let's see. Well, of course, we just discussed it, but to make the budget amendment to create the additional funds to be transferred from the property account to cover $293,750 for implementing the redesign. Does that work, Lauren? Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your consideration.
Yes, sir. Okay, we move now to item 4.14, and Wendy has that one as well.
This agenda item is to set the public hearings for the two debt issuances for May. The 2022A, like I mentioned before, will be up to 32 million permanent debt, and that'll cover our current draw program, and then we'll be opening a new draw program, which will be the 2022B.
Okay, questions for Wendy on that item? All right, hearing none, we will move to item 4.15.
This is a request from Street Hotels to waive their penalties at $6,259.14. It's for 3 different hotels. It was due December 20th, but they did not post date it, or it was not postmarked until December 21st. So they wrote a letter requesting for us to waive the fees for them. They are in good standing now.
Did that just say there was an oversight, or?
They blamed it on the post office.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The letter, they said they delivered it or actually mailed it on the final date, but it wasn't postmarked till the next day. So
Yeah.
I think they've been in good standing for
Several years.
for many years, yeah, so.
Right. Any questions, commissioners? All right, then we will move to item 4.17, and this comes from Human Resources and Lundy Covington. She was behind me, I couldn't see you.
All right, I did, Lauren, send you an update. I don't know if you saw that and can route to that. I accidentally sent Lauren a very thick packet of information that's more than you want, so I had a very brief handout. This is a topic that we also talked about the retreat. Much as we talked about retention, we also talked about the challenges we have in recruiting new staff, and there was a request to consider our hiring range. It caps out right now at the 25th percentile of each of our grade ranges. We are asking permission to move that to the 35th percentile, just to give us a little more of a cap. There are literally 5 places in the personnel ordinance that we refer to that, and my request tonight is, if approved, to move to the 35th percentile, we would need to adjust the ordinance accordingly, so moving from the 25th to the 35th for each of those 5 references. So I think Lauren has it up on the screen. And again, it's just in several places where we define what our salary range is. There are several places in the pay plan itself where we define the use of our salary ranges, the higher rate, and then there's a section on promotion, demotions, transfers, and reclassifications where we also insert that number. And then finally, in our recruitment and employment section, under offers of employment, we again mention that 35th percentile. So I don't know if there are any questions I can entertain, or if there needs to be additional discussion. But again, this is just to give us an additional range with which to potentially make offers. The county manager would approve anything over the 35th percentile, as he does now for offers over the 25th percentile.
Questions for Lundy? Yep, I think you did a good job explaining this at the retreat, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, 4.18, Infrastructure and Asset Management, Emergency Equipment Warehouse, and we welcome Mr. Billifer back to the table.
Good evening. The Emergency Equipment Warehouse and ITS building project was advertised on February 7th of 2022. Bids were received on March 1st, 2022. And we wanted to discuss the bid submittals, including the quantity of bids, the cost, et cetera, and make a recommendation for the bid award, including the alternates. So you might all recall, I think I took you through a virtual walkthrough of the ITS portion of the building. So quick synopsis, 30,000 square feet, 17, give or take, $100,000 of that is the warehouse portion. It represents 19 roll-up doors, 9 pull-throughs, meaning double doors on both sides, and then I think we have one standalone double door for the vehicles to come in that ITS has to go in and provide all the software and cameras and everything in. And then the remainder of that square footage of the building, 13,000 of it, is the ITS building. And they are connected, so mechanically and fireproof-wise and everything, it is one building, but security-wise, it's very much separated. The emergency equipment warehouse portion will be utilized by EMS, emergency management, and the sheriff's department. And this obviously proves a big global picture for the county. Moving ITS out of this building allows us to domino backfill effect. You know, obviously we're busting at the seams too. So this kind of has a big bearing. So we did receive 6 bids, and I will just give you kind of the highlights. Between the first and second bid, so the number 1 bid, meaning the lowest bid, and the second lowest bid, it's about $185,000 spread. Between the lowest bid and the highest bid, it's about a $1.4 million spread. And 3 of the bidders were within $200,000 of each other. That's the one I like to focus on because that's the best news of that. So the awarded bidder is Lyles Construction, and that total amount is $7,326,159. So the motion in front of the board is to suspend the rules of procedure due to time constraints. And as I start to bring a lot of these projects in front of the board, I will probably be asking for that more and more just because of the market. It's not so much our general contractors or our construction manager at risk. It is all of their subs. So the bids they're getting, some of them say good for 20 days. Some of them say good until tomorrow at 5 p.m. And that's a reality. So the sooner that I can lock these in, the easier it is to procure those materials and start going through the shop drawings and the submittal process and lock those in. There is no budget amendment needed. The money is already in the account. And to give you a comparison of how this compares with our actual last cost estimating that we did right before we went into construction drawing design. So as we were in our last phases of design drawings, which is called DD, the cost estimate was actually higher than what the lowest bid was. It was at 7.6 million compared to the 7.3 that you have in front of you. So what I'm saying is the architect did a very good job. The cost estimator did a very good job, and staff did a very good job. So I'd like to ask the board to suspend the rules and motion to approve the bid award and authorize the county manager to execute the contract between Cabarrus County and Lyles Construction, subject to revision by the county attorney.
So you feel pretty comfortable that if we wait a little while, the price is not going to go down?
Yes, sir. I feel extremely confident that that is no longer going to happen.
Questions for Mr. Billifer? Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. That motion passes. And would now entertain a motion to approve the bid award and authorize the county manager to execute the contract between Cabarrus County and G.W. Lyles Construction Company, subject to revision by the county attorney. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you, sir. And Kyle has the next item as well.
So here to talk to you about yet another easement with the Novi Flats operation. The mixed-use building, affectionately known as Novi Flats, that is their true name. That is not the LLC that owns them or the contractor that's working on it, but as the actual complex's name. That's being constructed next to the county parking deck, and it needs an additional easement from the county. A water meter easement and a generator easement have already been approved by the Board of Commissioners during the June 2021 regular meeting. A temporary easement for fencing was approved by the Board of Commissioners during the February work session. This reciprocal easement deals directly with a connector between Novi Flats and the Cabarrus County parking deck located on the 5th level. The requested action is the motion to approve the reciprocal easement between Cabarrus County and Novi Flats LLC and authorize the county manager to execute the reciprocal easement on behalf of Cabarrus County, subject to review or revisions by the county attorney. The county attorney has been involved in the development of this easement, as was myself. So there, a lot of that language in there is specifically put in by me, and our structural engineer for the parking deck provided the exact specs for how to cut in to the deck to create that connector. If you recall, when we built the deck, the reason we were able to build the deck and the reason we were able to build the deck at that cost and at such a tight site was how we built it. So there is metal inside of all that concrete, meaning if you try to drill a sign into the wall and you shred one of those, you might be in trouble. So trying to cut into a portion of it was a large concern. So in the easement, it specifically states that they have to follow everything that the engineer said, and if there's anything that goes wrong with that, they're completely liable. Sorry, to the extent that an agreement allows you to be liable, but yes.
And so Kyle, for the public, this last one that you're talking about, what does that achieve?
So it allows the connection between the new building being built and the county deck. It would mean that if you are one of the folks that is visiting one of the retail spaces in that building, or you are a resident of that new building, you could park on the 5th floor of the parking deck, or the top level, the one that has nothing over it. And you could park there, and instead of having to go down the elevator and go outside to Barbrick to get into your area or to your retail space or your residence, you would be able to cut through into basically a back section corridor of the new building where you'd be able to use an elevator to get where you needed to go. And obviously, there's provisions in the easement that would allow us to shut the top level down. You know, during inclement weather, we literally shut the whole top level down because you can't treat a deck like that because you can't put ice melt on it because of all the metal that's in the concrete.
Okay, additional questions for Mr. Billifer? All right, sir, you have item 4.20 as well.
North Carolina General Statute 133-3 requires performance standards to be used when specifying products. The statute also allows preferred brands of equipment to be bid for the Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office firing range renovations project, provided that the performance standards were approved by the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners. To be approved, the alternate must either provide a cost savings or maintain and improve the functioning of the process or the system affected by the brand alternate. Approval is requested for the preferred brand alternates for the equipment as indicated on the attachment. So if you recall, several years ago, I came in front of the board and gave you updates on the work that we were doing at our sheriff's department's firing and training range. So we excavated a bunch of the berm walls and made a bunch of civil improvements out there. When we did that project, we destroyed or demolished what is known as affectionately as the shoot house. That's basically close-quartered wood panels where you go in, hug corners, and simulate what it would be like to go into a dwelling where you would have to take shots and take tight angles. Now, I would tell you that while I say we destroyed the shoot house, I asked the termites that were holding it together just to vacate the property. There wasn't much to it, but when we did that, we knew we were going to have to come back and replace that. And now they actually have modular companies that provide those. And you can put them together, you can situate them in different ways, and you can also relocate them to different areas. So if you read the attachment, it has a local vendor of that material who our sheriff's department is very familiar with, and that is Contact Industries. They actually have an office in Kannapolis. Our sheriff's department deals a lot with them and is actually familiar with their products, since that is what is housed at the Rowan Cabarrus Community College. So in a lot of other instances, I'd come in front of you for very large projects with a list of 20 different preferred alternates. And in this instance, I'm only coming for one. So what we are planning on doing at the range over the next 6 months, we will build a shelter, which basically to keep, for kind of a graphical idea, think of a shelter at one of our parks, but think of it as being a little bit taller. And we will put this shoot house, this mobile modular shoot house underneath that so that the officers can train in there.
Will this be something that can be moved to the new public safety training facility in a few years?
Yes, that's why we focused on mobile and modular, and yes, it can be. It can be, actually, it can be situated in different ways, meaning set up in different ways in-house or by using them as a contractor to come in, and yes, it would be able to be relocated. I think to relocate it based on just kind of the sheer size of the panels, it's not something you throw on the back of a pickup truck, but yes, it can be relocated.
Okay, commissioners, questions for Kyle on this item? All right, I think you have one more.
Yes, thank you. This is for the sale of surplus vehicles to Davidson County Sheriff's Office. Davidson County Sheriff's Office has requested to purchase 2 surplus vehicles from the Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office fleet. These vehicles are both 2006 BMW motorcycles, asset number 2318 and asset number 2319, and the VIN numbers are provided in the agenda item. Currently, only one of the motorcycles is operational. The Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office stated that the agreed sales price for both motorcycles would be $7,500. Both motorcycles were originally purchased utilizing grant funds in 2006. We have been granted permission for disposition by the North Carolina DOT. Per North Carolina General Statute 160A-274, the Board of Commissioners' approval is required prior to the sale of these surplus items.
Okay, questions on this item?
Yeah, when you say, you can read that you can read that both ways. The price for both will be 75,
Yeah.
or the price
Total
Total
together.
Okay. So it's not 15 grand.
No,
it's 75.
no.
So just
Like-
out of curiosity, and not that it really matters, but, so where does that $7,500 go?
You'd have to ask our finance director in terms of
Does it go
surplus.
into general fund?
So it's grant funds,
It was originally
Originally
grant
grant
funds,
funds,
but we've got permission.
yes. Yes, we
So
did.
it would just be miscellaneous revenue, yes.
Just miscellaneous revenue? Okay.
Doesn't go back to me. That's what I know.
No, I just was curious if there was something specific where it had to go or what we have to do with it. It's not much money, but that's, I was just curious.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next up is item 4.22, approval of a budget amendment for the library, and I think Emery Ortiz is with us virtually. And muted.
Oh, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. So the library system was awarded a adapting technology grant through the State Library of North Carolina for $39,180. The grant was written to upgrade some staff technology to more mobile units, to allow us to walk around the building more, continue our curbside services, and just do more point of service, customer service in our facilities. So we were awarded this grant. There is no matching required. We just need the budget amendment to be approved so we can accept that grant from the state library.
Questions for Emery? All right, thank you very much. Okay, our next item is 4.23 from Planning and Development, Weatherization American Rescue Plan Act Budget Amendment, and we're happy to have Kelly Sifford with us.
Thank you. So what you have in front of you is the actual budget amendment associated with the contract that we added to the agenda last month. We had the turnaround date to get the contract back to the state. So we approved the contract at the regular meeting in February, and this is the associated budget amendment for $62,243. $47,957 is to go toward weatherization and $14,286 toward HARP. As we discussed, their idea for this is to ramp up the weatherization staffing. We have not heard from them yet on how much we're getting and when, so we're still kind of circling on that part, but we have a couple of very eager people to get heating and air repairs.
Great. Questions for Kelly? All right, thank you. And we move to item 4.24 from the Register of Deeds Office regarding an excise tax refund request. And I don't think Mr. Nixon is with us. You gonna handle that, Rich?
Well, I
Yeah.
can. He didn't say anything to me about this one, but usually he asks me to do it. This happens every now and then where somebody will record deed in the wrong county, particularly if the property is very close to the county line. And so they pay the revenue stamps or excise tax in the county where the deed's recorded. If you record in the wrong county, that means you paid the money in the wrong county, because you pay it at the same time you record. So that's apparently what happened here. And the way you can fix that is you have to file a corrective affidavit in the county that you recorded wrongly, and then you re-record the documents in the correct county. And this law firm that did this has done all those requirements. And you have to do it within 6 months of the time it happens. So there's a deadline in the statute. So all that has been satisfied. So, they're asking for a refund of the amount that they paid to Cabarrus County when they shouldn't have paid it here.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Cook? All right, that completes the items on our agenda, and next up will be the approval of the regular meeting agenda. You all have a copy of that before you. I think that includes the public hearings, or public hearing. I think there was just one that we had discussed tonight. Does anyone see any other items that need to
Item
be adjusted?
F2 was pulled off.
Which one?
F2.
Is that the one from Active Living in Parks?
Yes.
Okay. Any other adjustments? Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda as presented with the elimination of item F2.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. That motion passes. We do have need of a closed session tonight, so at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session as authorized by North Carolina General Statute 143-318, A, 3, and 5.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say no. And we are now in closed session, and we thank our viewing audience for joining us tonight. And we look forward to seeing you at our regular meeting in 2 weeks.